Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to Pink Lady Presents. I am so excited today, as usual. I know my
You're
audience.
more excited than usual.
I know. I
can
really
tell.
am. I really am. Because these guests of ours today, as you know, our program is filled, as Chaplain Dove and I tell everyone, with lives well lived. And today we have two lives that are really well lived and of helping the whole world. Besides that. So I am doubly excited because they're friends as well. Today we have lovely, lovely Rala Kahn, and then equally lovely Richard Rossner, her wonderful partner since how many years?
It'll be 32 years, May 31st.
32 years.
That's right.
So welcome, hello.
Hi,
Hi.
on this great Sunday morning.
It is. And I always, first I want to ask you, the reason that we couldn't get you on, you went through was it a
I
hip
did.
operation?
I got a dancer's hip, though, which is very great.
Dancer's hip.
Yeah, I got a dancer's hip, which, bone on bone, years of dance.
oh,
So
oh.
it creamed me, but then when the time was right, the universe lined up in science
Yeah.
and technology
I know.
and full range of motion, and I am back.
Of course, I have to now dance too,
Yeah.
because she got the dancer's hips.
But, yeah, but she's pretty.
She is.
You know, so that's the way it goes.
But that was a deal breaker.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. If he wasn't going to dance, then we weren't going to get married.
Oh,
Because I got voted best dancer in junior high and high school.
Really?
Absolutely. Uni high.
Uni,
Go Uni.
Hooray for Uni High. Well, tell me something. I have read some of, what you've done and, all that. But our audience really doesn't know some of the things. And we're going to let them in because you're in for a really great, great storytelling today. Rala, before the groundlings, and I would like you to tell everybody about the groundlings, as we know what it is, but many of our audience
Well, we
doesn't.
have people who watch this program worldwide.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of
Great.
them,
And
groundlings?
we get telegrams and we get emails from Japan. And
Oh, really?
saying, you mentioned something.
Yeah, the groundlings.
fabulous.
What is that?
Yeah.
That's what I did when I heard the name. I thought
Really?
it sounded like a rodent.
Yeah,
I had
right.
it's the groundlings were the penny. They paid the penny at the Old Globe in Old England.
Oh.
The
Shakespeare.
Shakespeare,
Okay.
Elizabethan,
Theater, yeah.
and they were the penny. They
Is that how
the
the name
pennies.
came-
That's
Yes.
how they sat on
Get
the
it.
ground
Okay.
like at the old theaters in
Oh.
England. And
And how did you come to it?
how did Lorraine Newman, who was on Saturday Night Live. Yeah,
Right,
she and I, we
okay.
were old friends, and she
Young
went to
friends.
Beverly. I went to
You
uni.
never mentioned the word old in the
Okay.
program.
I remember she used to tell me how funny I was in real life. Of course,
Ah.
I didn't expect that I would eventually, there's a distinction between funny in life and funny on a stage. I had to learn.
Where were you brought up?
Right here, Los
Right here in
Angeles.
Cali-
Los
Touching
Angeles.
her, honey.
Los
Well,
Angeles.
she's the original.
Correct.
An original-
And
an
you
original
came all the
girl.
way, New Jersey?
From New Jersey,
Oh,
that's
wow.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And really it was and still is Los Angeles's preeminent improvisational theater company, and so many.
Right.
I mean, the list is too long to mention.
Right.
So where Second City was Toronto and Chicago, Los Angeles
Was
was
the
the
Groundlings.
Groundlings. Yeah, so it was
And-
a great improvisation.
So did you go right from high school to doing that, or what?
Well, it's quite a story if you really want to
Okay,
hear.
we want to know.
We have time.
So this is great. I was on my way, my senior year in high school, I was on my way to the professional school in New York. I was at theater, I was going to be a theater major, and my father, unfortunately, just got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And my mom was 40, I was 15, I had two younger sisters.
How
My
old was
dad
your
died
dad?
50, just had his 50th birthday. So that changed everything. I didn't go to New York. I stayed here, and I worked at a really cool little boutique in Beverly Hills.
What was the name?
Well, in those days, it started out as Papagallo, which was
sure.
a shoe line, and I worked there. That was my after high school job,
Right.
and then that guy, Donald Pleiner, who was the manager of that store, opened up the Right Bank Clothing Company.
Correct.
And
There we
every
go.
every
That's right.
hip
Everybody.
actor, rock and roller. I
That's
mean,
right.
Elton John came when he did
Yeah.
his first gig at the Troubadour, and
Right.
I say Elton John paid my rent for a year because I got a little commission, but he spent lots and lots and lots of money, and
That was the place to go.
it was fantastic, yeah. And 36 dozen rhinestone shirts that said Hollywood Boulevard that I did one for myself, and then Elton bought 36
Oh,
dozen.
my.
And everybody I knew was I had to have my grandmother, my mother, rhinestoning these little palm trees. I mean, it was great. So I've always loved fashion.
Right.
Can you tell?
No.
But so my love of the theater started very young, and my dad was, as we like to say in our family, butt doctor to the stars, and so having a sense of humor was a premium in our house. Having a dad that did that for a living, and it was mortifying. You know, my dad is a tushy doctor. It was, but at that same time, I mean, in this town, now everything's sort of out in the public persona, not in those days.
But I also want to throw
Yeah.
in that while you were working there, an actress came in who had to prepare for an
That's
audition.
right. That's right.
Oh.
Valerie Harper. Rolla
Oh,
dressed
hello.
Valerie
For
Harper.
her audition for Rhoda, she shopped at the
Actually,
store.
that's who you remind me of.
Well,
Truthfully.
and she loved the way I
Yes,
dressed,
yeah.
and you know, we had so much fun. And she said, "Rolla, you're so funny. You really have to study with my husband, Dick Shaw. He's got a little improv class going on.
Right.
Come to our house on Lynbrook Avenue in Westwood,
my
which
God.
is not far from where I went to junior high." And I met him, and he said, "Yeah, why don't you come to my class?" So I learned to improvise, never expecting to be a groundling.
Oh my.
Well, I mean, it was a step.
Right.
You know, you learn lots of skills if you're on an acting
Right,
track,
right.
and that was one of them. But that's when Lorraine came along and said, "Ra, you need to come audition for the Groundlings." And I said, "That sounds like a rodent. What's a groundling?"
It does.
And oh my God,
And how long were you with the Groundlings?
I was at the Groundlings for 5 years, and then the guy that created the company, Gary Austin, I guess it was a little intriguish, would we say? I
That's
mean,
it.
he
Okay.
became my boyfriend.
Oh.
So my teacher became my boyfriend for
And I
8
got to
years.
meet his daughter.
Yes,
Yes.
you met
That's your
Audrey.
house.
Yes. So, I mean, it was very, the best way to describe learning to improvise is learning to speak without a script,
Correct.
which we do every day.
Correct.
But it was the most fabulous
And you have to
education.
be fast.
Very
You have to-
fast.
very-
you have to
I mean,
think
like,
on your,
like when you walk in a room, just say something. And
Lightning
there it
fast.
is, lightning fast.
And I wasn't. I couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time. In those days, I could be funny in real life, but if you put me on a stage, something happened. I got self-conscious, and I had to learn how to unlearn my self-consciousness.
And
that
how
was
did you
fun.
meet her?
Well, we were. I moved
I mean,
out
I know
from New-
something is
I moved-
somewhere had it.
I moved out from New Jersey.
Okay.
A high school friend of mine was on a hit show. He was on Welcome Back, Kotter, and that was Bobby Hedges, who played Epstein.
That's right. I
And-
loved him.
Yeah, and
Is
he
he
said,
alive now?
no, he passed
I
away
thought- I
sadly.
thought so, yeah.
Sadly,
Okay.
but he said you got to come out here. There's work. So I said, look, I'm an East Coast guy. I'll come out. I'll take 2 weeks.
yeah.
And then I'll come. He said, no, bring an extra suitcase with underwear. I said, why? Because he said, you're going to stay. I said, all right, I'll bring the extra suitcase, but I'm going back. I came out and I said, okay, that's I
What
get
year
it.
were we talking about?
This is 1976.
Okay.
I saw an ad that the Groundlings were looking for new people, and I said, well, I like improvisation. Let me try out. So I went, I tried out, I got into a class. Paul Rubens was in my class, who plays Pee Wee Herman.
Pee-wee
if you know
Herman,
that.
right.
And one of the classes that I had the opportunity to take was a musical comedy where you make up a song on the spot. And Rolla was in that particular class as well. Now, she was going with the guy who started the company, so it was like,
Yeah. Hands off.
she's cute, but hands off.
Right.
And, but I remembered her over the years, and then I wound up getting invited to an AIDS benefit about 9 years later, eight or 9 years
Wow.
later.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
and
Okay, thanks.
I saw this woman across the way with a drink in her hand and some crudité, and I thought, I know her. That's the casting director who liked me. I'll go over, I'll say hello, my career, she will remember me, she'll put me in a show, my career is made. Halfway across, I realized it's not a casting director, but I know her, but I don't know who she is.
that's
I'll just
funny.
kind of veer off, at which point she looked at me and nodded. So I said, well, now I have to go over and say hello.
Right. Well, yeah.
So I went over and I could not remember her name. All I could remember was the letter R. So I walked up to her and I said, hi, you're I was hoping it would happen.
Rolla's my name.
Rolla. Yes, Rolla. And that was it. My first question, are you still going with Gary? She said no.
Good. Okay.
Good. Open
Open
field.
door.
Here we go.
Open
Here we
door.
go.
I
3
lo-
months later, we were engaged, and 6 months after that, we were married at the Riviera Country Club.
Total of
And,
9
Wow.
months, perfect gestation.
yes, and here we are, heading for
And
a
not only
32nd.
here you are, but I got the privilege of seeing your son
Oh, yes.
after college perform on
Yes.
stage
Yeah.
for the first time. And now he's how old?
He's 28.
28.
28 years
yeah,
old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plays guitar,
I
writes
mean,
music.
Writes
He's writing
music.
music. He had a
Chords.
couple of songs placed on
And
shows.
sometime,
so
if you're a lucky audience, you'll get to see Chase here on Pink Lady Presents.
Thank
Well,
you.
look forward to
everything
that.
started, though, I must tell our audience. You said something that I absolutely loved. When I talked to Richard on the phone, I said, you know, you're married 32
Two.
years, and things are great, and you're with each other 24/7. And he said, we interact as a couple who not only love each other, but like each other. And honestly, there's millions of people out there that love each other, but very few really like each other. And that's the key, I think. Truthfully, I think
Yeah.
that's
And,
the
and
key.
the secret to their success is he had to agree that she gets to wear the bracelets.
Yeah.
And I had to dance. We do know that. We
Okay.
established
Yeah.
that. Yeah. But when we started dating, Rolla was working at Step Up on Second.
And what
Santa
is
Monica.
that? Right,
Okay.
I want to get to that. Yes,
Right.
what is that?
Step Up on Second was a support center for mentally ill adults.
Okay.
Okay, and she said, I'm using improvisation, and I'm teaching these mentally ill adults improvisation. And I thought, that is fascinating.
Wow, yes.
I
it
want to
is.
see what that looks like and how that works. So part of our dating life was intertwined with me coming down and seeing what she was doing. And I was absolutely
away.
blown away.
And then he fell in love. Because, yeah.
go ahead. No,
No, I
go
was
ahead.
going to say, because, you know, that whole scenario, I think a theme, at least an operating principle in my life, is when serendipity and synchronicity meet at the intersection of wow and boo.
Oh, I like that. Okay. I like that.
Magic happens, and so it's really been a theme, and I feel very strongly about that. And so you know, we ran into each other. I don't think it was an accident that we both showed up at the Biltmore Hotel alone that night.
right.
That kind of thing.
Well, what's the word in our language, so to speak?
Bashar.
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 Which
Of
means
It's
meant to be.
Meant to be.
Meant to be. And that's it.
But when you like somebody, I would choose Richard as a friend every day of the week. I mean,
Okay.
just as a human being on the planet, I respect him enormously. I thought he was delicious to begin with, but then he's such a man of integrity, and he's so sole purpose driven that it's intoxicating. You know, you go through ups and downs in
Right,
a marriage, but to
But you
like
can see
somebody.
it. But the audience can see that. As I said, just sometimes an aura goes over the bounds of a TV screen or a film or something.
And
you
one
know
of the
it.
things that I got to watch, Veterans Holiday Celebration has a big event in Los Angeles every year. It's our 27th year this year. And I had met Richard and Raula through a friend, Linda Jackson, and I invited them to come. We had thousands of veterans. It was raining. It was a nasty day.
Oh, yes.
Freezing.
Horrible. We're in a tent.
I've almost gotten rid of the cold, yes.
Yeah,
Go
the
ahead.
computer. Well, next year, the computers were down. I mean, it was horrible. And they set up a program they're going to tell you about. And I watched the interaction with these veterans while they were waiting for everything else to go on. And they were just, they bought into it 100%. There was nobody yawning. There was nobody who couldn't wait to leave. They couldn't wait to sit down. And you're going to tell us what that program was.
Well, you know, that's the cool thing about. Well, I think you came to our house for dinner. I think
Yes.
that's when we really got to know each
did.
other,
Oh,
and we had
okay.
we had a question under everybody's plate
Oh,
because we don't just
okay.
let you come to like our house,
Okay,
and we
okay.
don't just let people sit around a table. We have to get them.
You have to engage.
Engage.
interacting,
Get to know.
Okay.
and that's I think what people get surprised by, but it's also what draws people in and keeps them engaged,
Right.
which we love.
Right.
So you survived a Shabbat dinner at
I
our
did.
house.
But everybody has a story, and that's one of the key ingredients of what we do with our company, The Power of Play, is that we engage people and let them begin to tell some piece of their story
Right.
and their unique perspective on life. You know,
But let me ask
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
It had to begin somewhere. So Rala,
Yes.
you're doing improvisation. Where did the idea come from? It had to come. Yeah, in other words, one
Yeah,
day you
yeah.
just didn't wake up and say, you know, I'm going to
No,
do this.
no.
I mean, it had
The
to come from
epiphany.
somewhere.
The
Yes, yes.
epiphanic moment, as I like
Correct,
to
yeah.
say.
What was it?
I got
Did you interact
rear-ended.
with
No, I
someone?
got rear-ended by a Mack truck on La Brea and Third.
Are you joking?
Literally rear-ended by a Mack truck.
Okay, so everybody
You don't do
remember
anything
this.
in
Yeah.
a small way.
Well, here was what was very intriguing to me
Okay.
as I reflect back at this idea of intersections. And it was an interesting, challenging time in my life. I was really perplexed. I was known as the third callback queen, which meant it didn't have anything to do with my talent, but
Right.
things like, she's too pretty, she's not pretty enough, she's, too ethnic, not
Right,
ethnic
right,
enough. And these were things that were out of my control, and it started to wear thin. And I was questing and quite, I would call it in a bit of a spin, and not in the best place in my life.
Okay.
To sort of, why would God put me on this track, and then I would keep not getting booked? And I really didn't understand it, but it took a truck hitting me to figure out that there was something
And
else.
what did you figure
Do
out?
tell.
Well,
Yeah.
so, of course, I was in the Groundlings. I was appearing nights as a waitress at Via Fettuccine, and the guys that opened the Bodhi Tree, which was LA's biggest, most preeminent spiritual bookstore, used to come to the restaurant, and then they used to come and see me at the show at the Groundlings. They heard I had gotten hit by a Mack
Right.
truck. Now, I was fine. I mean, fine. I was boo-boo. I had a boo-boo or two. I was
Right.
boo-booed
Well,
up.
yeah.
But in my recovery, in my, my car was totaled, they invited me to come to the store, and literally, they left me in a room and they said, these are all the best sellers. Take anything you want. Make a
wow.
big pile. And what
Okay.
happened is Norman Cousins' book, which was Norman Cousins, a bestseller, Anatomy of an Illness, fell on my foot. Literally fell off the shelf
Thank
onto
you,
my
God.
foot.
Right.
And then
Oh, really?
Dr.
Yeah.
O. Carl Simonton's book, Getting Well Again, another bestseller.
Fell on the
at
other
time.
one.
It was like a neon. It was like a neon marquee. Just take me, take me. So I added those two books to the top of the pile and about 30 underneath. I never got to the other 30. I read those two in the beginning, and there was something about learning about Norman, who laughed himself well,
Right.
watching comedy videos. And Dr. Simonton's work, he was a dyed-in-the-wool radiation oncologist committed to easing his patients' suffering.
Oh, wow.
And how many success stories he had written about when you really tapped into the emotional component. Because in our culture, we don't talk about cancer and the emotions, but he did. And both these books intrigued me, and I started to yammer at my chiropractor, my orthopedist, when I get my nails
Right.
done. When I was waiting on tables, I'd say, I want to do something with laughter and healing. I want to do something where I can make the laughter, hear the laughter, help people who are in trouble, who are dealing with health crises. And also, like I did Carl Simonton's book as a workbook. I didn't have cancer. I just read the book and I went, this is a great book.
Even
In
if
the
you
way
don't
that
have cancer.
if you don't have cancer, but
For
it's
living a balanced life.
but
is really what he's
it
talking
was
about.
asking questions about me. It's like, oh my God, this book was written for me. What is it that I love about the theater? And what is it about my not having a thick enough skin so that when I'm told no, I don't go cry for 3
Oh, we'll
weeks?
call you.
So I read the books and I could not stop talking about it. And my chiropractor came in one day and he said, this brochure has your name all over it. And it was the first international humor, laughter, play conference in San Francisco at the
I
Sheraton
never
Palace.
even heard of anything like
The
that.
keynote speakers, Norman Cousins and Carl Simonton.
Wow.
Too much
Wow.
of a
I
coincidence.
mean, I mean,
You had to go.
I had to go, and
course.
of course, and I asked my mother. She goes, "Are you out of your mind? You're going to go?" And I cockamamie. I mean, that was my mother. And so I asked a guy that I happened to be dating at the time, who said to me, "I want to do something nice for you." I said, "You want to do something nice for me? I want to go to this conference."
Right.
And of course, I had like 3 nickels to rub together, not 4 or 5, but he was a great guy, and he said, and a very successful record producer. Didn't know he was getting ready to break up with me. That goofball. And so he said, I'll pay for your ticket. And of course, I didn't think that of asking, why don't you just pay for my hotel too?
Yeah.
It didn't occur to me.
No.
I was so grateful to go.
I tell you, you got a lot to learn.
I had a lot to learn at that time. And then I had a best friend that lived in San Francisco, so I stayed with her. I went to the conference, and I was 25 years younger than every single person there.
Wow.
And I had 20 rhinestone
Wait,
bracelets at the
please.
time and a rhinestone bow in my hair, and I stuck out like a sore thumb. I stuck out like a sore thumb. And at the banquet on the Saturday night, the
Right.
conference started on a Thursday. That Saturday night, and am I allowed to tell
Sure,
it like
of
it is?
course.
Sure.
Can you use the F word here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, because this is not my words, but this is what happened. I was the only vegetarian plate in 1,000 dinners, and it was pouring rain, and I took a taxi for my girlfriends. I was like a drowned rat when I got there, and I was looking for my plate in 1,000 other people
right.
place settings. And I found it, and I sat down, and the waiter brought a little note over to the table and said, this is from the head table. And it was from Carl Simonton and Norman Cousins. Now, Norman Cousins did not speak this way, but it said this: who the fuck are you, and why are you at this conference? Carl Simonton, Norman Cousins, and Bob Gilly, who Carl writes about in his book, who was one of his
love
patients.
it.
And they said, please meet us afterward. We need to know your story. And I stood
Oh,
in line
my.
with my little book, and they said, okay,
Why are you here?
why are you here? And I said to Carl, I go, you're the Beatles of cancer. And that's all he needed to hear. And he said, we're going to go to North Beach. We want to hear your story. Norman said to me, look, I'm not going out with this maniac. I'm in L.A., you're in L.A.
Right.
Call me. I have an idea for you. And because I had mentioned I wanted to do something with
Right.
improv and healing. And then Carl and
took off.
first I had to they took me out and they heard everything. And he said, I love this idea. And he came to LA. He came to my mother's house. I had moved home. I was young. My mother's home had scotch on the rocks, and for 3 hours said to my mother, you know what, Claire, get out of her face. She's on to something. Norman and I have her back, her front, her up, her down, her in and out and around and through. She's onto something, and we're gonna guide. We're gonna take care of her. We're
Where
gonna
were
mentor
you
her.
at this time?
Not in the picture.
Not in the picture.
I was doing other things, writing an
came
episode
along
of
later.
Welcome
Way
to
later.
Canada.
But
No.
that was a beautiful intersection that changed my life, because not long after that, Norman called and said, can you go to Step Up on Second and cover for my friend who normally
Now, what
plays-
is Step Up on Second?
Step Up on
Is it-
Second is an outpatient support facility for, in those days, we said mentally fragile adults in Santa Monica on
I
Second
like that.
Street.
I like that.
That
Mentally
was fragile
fragile
adults.
And many veterans went there
Many,
all the time.
many. And this
That's
was
how I came to second.
Really?
this was such a pivotal intersection in my life, because when Norman called me and said, can you cover for this gal B, Amadown?
Right.
She's got to come to UCLA and help me out, but I need you to go to Step Up on Second and play the comedy video.
Now, wait, this is where what I call Rolla magic happens.
Okay.
You know, she went to a conference. She winds up meeting the two people that she happened to have read. Now they're interested in her. That's Rolla magic. Now, they ask her to go play a video at Step Up on Second.
Okay.
Rolla is not what you'd call technologically
Yes.
inclined.
Me neither.
So
Me
she
neither.
goes. Now this means she has to work a videotape
Okay.
machine.
Oh, yeah.
And she's there, and she's kind of holding the wire limply in her hand. Where do I plug this in? How do I work? And one of the guys said, when are you going to put on the video? We want to go to sleep. She said, wait, you sleep during the video? He said, well, we're on meds. And she said, you're supposed to laugh. Now, she didn't want to work with a video anyway, so she said, why don't we play some games? So they started doing basic improv games. Now, here's where the Rolla magic comes in. The head of the State Board of Mental Health is being given a tour of the facility by the executive director, who's never seen Rolla before.
Okay.
And they see that people are laughing over in the corner, and the State Board of Mental Health person says, who is that and what is she doing? And the executive director, Susan Dempsey, said, I have no idea. For all I know, she's mentally ill. I've never seen her before. So they watched, and Susan said to Rolla, excuse me, young lady, when you're done, could you please come into my office? Rolla said,
Okay.
okay.
What, you get fired? I'm like here for a day.
Can't get fired.
You're right.
So she said, what were you doing? She said, well, I'm a groundling. Well, you know, what is that? I was doing
Right.
improv. Are you a psychologist? No, I'm an actress. Really? Well, the state board asked me to have you come back. We've never seen these people respond that way.
There you go.
We would like you to come back. We'll give you a small honorarium. And Rolla's reaction was, pay me to do
Did you
that?
do
This
this?
is what
Yeah.
I do. I love this.
I love it.
She was there for 9 years, every single weekend. And what happened was, and this is what's so interesting, so that was the Rolla magic part. But what was interesting about the work, she was just playing games. She had no formal plan.
Correct.
She didn't know what she said, let's play a game and see how it goes.
She didn't have years of learning.
Exactly.
No, no.
What happened was she recognized that people were learning life skills out of playing improvisational games. They were learning how to talk to their doctors, their psychiatrists, to change their meds, to empower themselves. And that was all out of this little lady right here.
The Rolla magic.
We will be right back with the Rolla and Richard saga.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it.
Okay.
We Are America, the show that proves that age is only a number for those that are 60, 70, 80, 90, and over. Come and see us, for we are America. Oh, okay, so this is really good. And I said, hi, everyone, we are back. I mean, I'm like so excited. This is like a book here. We're writing a book, and you're so lucky because you're reading it as it happens. So,
Yeah, and as our audience is watching this, I wanted to share a very quick story, and I'm going to let Richard borrow it permanently
Okay.
because it's so appropriate. People come up to us, we go into a room, 500 people, 1,000 people, they're automatically drawn to pink, right? So, and you have the
Can't
same
imagine
problem. Right. So I look at them and I say, my entire adult life, I've been the Lone Ranger, now I'm Tonto. So you may take it and use it well.
I am Tonto. Yes.
I love it.
Rolla is the star of this show.
Yes,
I
yes,
know.
we know.
Yes,
no,
you are.
no, stop that.
No, I think you both share it pretty well when we get to talking about what you're doing. But so you were there for 9 years with them.
9 years, and it kept informing me what the power of play, which is what I named the word.
love it.
The
I
power
love it.
of play, what it wanted to become, if that makes sense. I kept showing up, and it kept teaching me. I thought I was there to help them.
No, you were learning.
Oh my God,
love
they
it.
were my best teachers. Profound transformation. It was it changed the trajectory of my life, really. And that 9 years, in the middle, as Richard had mentioned, I mean, he came there sort of as a date. You know,
Right.
come see what I do, and then we'll go out to lunch afterward. And he just was blown away. And then Richard really became
And
very,
what were
very
you doing at that
involved.
time?
I was doing some acting, but I was also writing. And so writing was very important to me. And I wound up getting involved in a group called the Los Angeles World Hunger Event. And
The aid.
Yes, which eventually, and that was actually a live event at the Bonaventura Hotel for 8 hours about the issue of hunger. But it was a variety show, an 8-hour interactive experiential variety show. Jeff Bridges, Valerie Harper were involved.
Oh, my goodness.
Buckminster Fuller spoke. I mean, it was an extraordinary
I think
day.
you raised 125.
Well, no,
Oh,
that
was the
led to Live Aid,
That's right.
and Live Aid that raised $125 million for Ethiopian relief at that time. So.
But you were a writer on
but
that. Most
writing,
people think it was only music. There was a
yeah,
script.
no, there was writing that went on as well, and writing to make a difference was what I was interested in doing. Using laughter, humor to be able to, because people pay attention a little bit closer. You don't always have to cry
You have to
about
get
things.
their attention.
Yes,
Is
yes.
that how you realized about bullying? I mean, where did that come? We know
Well,
where her ideas came from, but where did yours come from?
I have a writing partner, and we saw, actually, it was one of those things, we saw Home Alone and saw that there was a market for family films. So we said, well, we can write one of those. So we wound up coming up with a very fun idea, and it turned into a film called How to Beat a Bully. And essentially, this is a story of a kid who moves to a new town, is getting picked on, and his father's an insurance salesman trying to get started in the new town, and the father has no good advice. Stay on the hand of friendship, son. I'm sure they'll come around. And he's getting creamed at school. So one night he's watching television, and there's a guy talking about the Godfather. And so he goes to school the next day, and he says, listen, you can beat me up, you can take my lunch money, but I think I should tell you, my father is a hitman for the mob. And his father is trying to sell insurance in town, and everybody thinks it's a different kind of insurance. And so all kinds of fun things happen. It's a very fun.
And we got the privilege
You
and
did.
the honor
That's right.
of previewing this at the Veterans Home of California,
Yes.
West LA, for veterans from World War II, Korea, Vietnam. And we were trying to figure out, is that the audience, or is the audience younger? And they were right in. There was nobody who wasn't totally engaged.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
People, and it really does cut across.
No,
Everybody has a bullying story, so people could relate to it, and it's a fun story, and it's a nice idea about how to somehow empower yourself. Use your mind. You don't have to use your fist. You can work through it.
You know
So-
who, and I'm just to interject
Yeah.
for 1 second because you said it's for everybody. Today I heard something on the television, and the gentleman was saying the biggest segment of our country that is being bullied, guess what? Are you over 60?
Really?
Unreal, because it's a different type of bullying from fraud, from everything else, but it is. And
Well, I will say, anybody in the audience who, if you've got a child, if you've got a grandchild, if you want to have a fun hour and a half, How to Beat a Bully, it's up on Amazon, on
How did
Google
they
Play,
get it?
all
That's
those
what-
places. You just go to wherever those search for it, you'll find it. But it's on Amazon and it's on Google Play and other platforms as
And
well.
just to
And
expand-
by the way, Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free.
oh, good.
and it's called How to Beat.
How to Beat.
B-E-A-T.
B-E-A-T.
Because the
Yes.
other movie, How to Be a
How to
Bully,
Be a
that's
Bully,
not
no,
us.
that's not us. That's not us.
No.
yeah.
That we don't want.
Laughter is so important, and in fact, in our relationship, one of the things that Rala and I recognized. I mean, Rala said, "I want to heal with laughter." Laughter is our aphrodisiac. It really does help in our own
Everything.
relationship. We've been in fights where all of a sudden one of us says, makes some kind of a slip, and we start to laugh, and it's like it's over. That's it. You
That's
know,
it.
this is much better than whatever we were doing before.
So you took the laughter for healing and all that,
Yes.
and use it in your particular
Absolutely.
life.
Absolutely. We do that. And when we're working with cancer patients, and this is interesting.
And how did that come up?
Well,
now?
Rala, because of her work with Norman, and then
Dr.
actually
Simonton.
Dr. Simonton
Right.
gave Rala some patients to work with.
Okay.
So she had some experience doing that. When we moved back, after the earthquake in '94 in Los Angeles, we moved to Scottsdale for 9 years. When we were there, we started doing corporate work. When we came back, Rala got in touch with Carl Simonton and said, we're back. And he said, I know you did this work before. I'd love to see how it works now. So he said, would you come up and do a couple of hours on one of our retreats, our cancer retreats? So we said, okay. We went up. He said, by the way, it's been a very exhausting day. I'll probably be sitting in there for about 10 minutes, and then I have to go to sleep.
Where is the Simonton Center?
Well,
The
the offices were in Malibu. They lost everything in the fire.
Oh.
This
Got burned
fire,
out.
everything.
But they're
So-
they're
but
up they're
in
up and
Montecito,
running again.
We're running.
But we were doing that retreat up in Santa Barbara, which got mudded out. So we're now here in
We're in Simi Valley at Brandeis.
at Brandeis Bardeen. So Carl said, I'll just be for 10 minutes and then I'll go. So we started to do our work.
He never left.
He never left
I
for
knew it.
2
I
hours.
heard that.
He came
Yeah.
up to us afterwards.
Yeah.
He said, I've been tracking my energy. He said, I am so jazzed right now,
Energized, right.
energized. He said, I want you to be on permanent staff. I want you at every
Wow.
single retreat we do. And so from that day forward, we've been working at the Simonton Cancer Center. So we're on staff. Rala was
Right.
so inspired by Carl's work, though, that wasn't enough just for us going up one night and doing the power of play. She has since become a Simonton therapist herself.
That was like going to
Wow.
medical school.
Oh,
that took me
my-
14 rotations and 3.5 years, and I got it. I got my certification, and I'm so
I need
proud.
to ask you, What is the key? There's got to be a key to everything in
Yes,
life.
yeah.
There's got to be a key to what you do, what you do. Everything has a key. What is the key?
You mean to Simonson's
Yeah.
work? Okay, in a nutshell, because I eat, sleep, and breathe
Am I
this work.
right? I mean,
Oh, yes,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think the key, this is such a great question because it helps one to focus in.
Correct.
But knowing Carl as I did, his commitment as a dyed-in-the-wool radiation oncologist who really was exploring why do some patients get well and some don't. His commitment was to ease his patients' suffering and give them back their hope. That was his theme, which inspired me, and it is the cornerstone of the work I think that we do. Not even I think, I know, because the Simonton program is a psychological and emotional intervention for cancer patients and their families. You know, to get through the fear and to give people back their hope. And I love the definition of hope that we use at Simonton. It's right from Merriam-Webster. It is hope is the belief that desirable things are attainable, regardless of the remoteness of the probability.
I like that.
Isn't that
Wow.
beautiful? So
Can you repeat that
that's-
once more?
Yes.
I love it.
Hope is the belief that, it makes me cry almost.
Yeah.
Hope is the belief that desirable things are attainable, regardless of the remoteness of the probability.
Love it.
So when doctors tell patients, get your affairs in order, or stage 4, or, you know, it's aggressive, my job is to unbundle their fear. That's my commitment. I'm an
She's the
unbundler.
unbundler.
I really am. That's what people say. I unbundle people's fear and I help them sustain their hope.
If you were to summarize the Simonton program in a sentence,
Yeah.
it would be do more of what brings you joy and deep fulfillment and less of what brings you stress.
And suffering,
Simple.
honey.
And suffering, yes. Yeah. So looking at your life, if you are only experiencing stress
Right.
and hating everything you're doing,
got a
you want
problem.
out,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you
you
get
got-
sick.
you got a problem.
Yes.
You got-
You
yeah,
have a
exactly.
problem. I mean,
Yeah.
and, you know, it's not
When
always
people
cancer,
start doing
of course.
when people
That's
start
not the
doing
issue.
what they enjoy and what
Right.
brings them fulfillment, it gives them a purpose to keep going. And that is so much of what we do in our work is helping people tell their story. What was the thing that you always loved doing? And when people start to do that, Rolla has stories of people who
Well, you were telling us there was a story about someone in a coma. Well,
Oh,
what was
yeah.
that?
That
yes,
I mean,
oh gosh,
my
we
key
did the
words
power.
here. I had to remember this.
Yeah.
Our lives have taken us into the most wild experiences. Richard mentioned we were in Scottsdale. You know, corporate was not even a possibility, and the next thing we knew, we had an article written about us, and the Harlem Globetrotters called, and then American Express, and then the Dial Corporation, and it became, it was like a runaway train in the best way possible. What happened? Well, go ahead.
Well, Rolla has a cousin who is a neurologist
That's right.
in Washington, D.C., and he had a patient who was in a coma. There was a problem. He had a minor operation. They put the tube down the wrong thing, and he wound up in a coma. And this was a very important person in Washington. He had the world's biggest travel agency. And Rolla's cousin said, could you come out and maybe there's something you could do with him?
Really? Oh,
We
my
said, and
goodness.
he's in a coma.
Yeah.
and we
said
said,
yes.
What? We always say yes. We always say yes and then figure it out later.
That's a
which
rule,
is a rule of
improv.
improv.
You always have to find agreement.
Well, that's
Like,
what like they
oh.
call you for commercials. You
That's
never
it.
ask them what it's
No,
for.
no.
Right.
Go.
I just
Go.
go.
Yeah, of course.
I don't care. Whatever.
Yeah, there you go.
Doesn't
But it's
matter.
but the concept of finding the yes. If you look at any improv show,
Right.
you don't know because it's hidden in the playing. But one of the rules is you have to find yes and figure it out as you go and add information. So
We said
yes
started-
to my cousin.
We said yes, and we
Okay.
started trying to figure out, well, what can we do with this guy? I
he's
mean,
in a
he's in a
coma.
coma because we have an idea of what a coma is, but
Okay.
it may be wrong. Because you do see a lot of literature that says, no, somebody is in there
But
and
they
they can
hear.
hear
They
you.
do
They
hear.
do
Yeah,
know.
they do hear.
So we started to think, okay, if we were going to do this, even though we think it's crazy, and,
Right.
but if we were to say yes and find agreement and do something for this guy, what would we do? Well, we started to think about, well, what did he like to do?
and so we found out.
So we found out he liked sailing and a number of activities.
Get to the story.
We decided what we were going to do was create a sailing experience for him in his room, in his bed, in a coma. Why
Okay.
not? So, well,
We got a spray
there,
bottle with water, and we got a fan,
And we got,
started to sing shanty
Right,
tunes.
okay.
an audio track of the ocean and birds. And,
The water's in my face.
Yes.
We did all that, and we sang our theme song,
Yes.
which was written by a Grammy Award-winning
what was the theme
singer-songwriter.
song? What was
The
the
Power
name?
Play.
Meet me in
The
the-
Power
in the
Play
playroom.
theme song.
Okay.
We
well,
should
what,
be playing
well,
that
that's
shit.
all right. What happened?
Such a
What
good-
happened though? Now we feel incredibly weird doing this in this room, but
Well,
his
but it was in Washington D.C. It was
God,
at the
right.
specialty hospital. It was during Christmas,
Christmas.
and everybody on the floor was intubated and in a coma. The entire floor, and our particular patient, because they were of certain means, they had Christmas trees in their room, and they had bells and
lights
whistles
and pictures.
Oh.
His wife was already doing a
Yeah.
lot of what we would have prescribed.
But
Right.
it was
So,
depressing.
but
It was.
as we were doing everything that we were doing, we didn't know if it was doing anything.
Right.
But we asked the nursing staff that was there. They said, "Oh no, he is loving this." How do you know?
There's
Well, we
something
just
with it.
saw a little.
Yeah.
His eyes did a thing.
His eyelash
Really?
moved,
Oh.
and that was. I mean, we were oblivious, and when they said that, it moved us.
Yeah,
I remember
yeah,
we got
yeah,
very
yeah.
emotional. It's like, oh my God, we really are doing something here.
Right.
Let's just keep doing it. So we were there for the week, and
And what happened?
he passed away
He-
a year
oh,
later.
A year
year
later.
later.
A year
But
later.
we know that what we were doing at that moment,
was-
that we were
Was
giving
either-
him some kind
yeah.
of pleasure, even if it was difficult for his body to somehow, surmount whatever he was dealing with.
Wow.
That was an interesting intersection yet again.
Yeah. I mean, and now for the army, for veterans, you were
Right.
saying.
Mm-hmm.
You
Well,
found
we had-
it helps
we
them
had-
with the
we had- yeah.
That was right before
PTSD.
the army.
Yeah,
that was right before the army.
We had a corporate client where we were working with recruitment, telephone recruiters for the health industry.
United Health Group.
United Health Group.
Right.
And a friend of ours has a brother who was in the Army and said, we need to do something in our recruitment division,
Right.
and we hear that you do something interesting. So go ahead, Rob.
And so the Army called us, and we got into a conversation with them. I like to say we were in bed with the Army for a year, and we immersed ourselves in neurology. They wanted to know what happened in the brain when people did our work. And so because my cousin was a neurologist, we really did do the research.
I mean, we just did what we did and loved what we did and knew people loved it, but they needed to know, so does it really work and why and how? And if
how do
you
you
could
feel
explain
while
it,
you're
they
doing
needed
it?
to be
Well, and our
vetted.
commanding
Yeah.
officers were asking us to change hearts and minds in the recruitment battalions because what was happening is, unfortunately, in some of the there was a bit of a disconnect that was happening with people that were coming back from the front lines,
Right.
soldiers, and they needed to get we don't have a draft, and so they were going to get redeployed, and they wanted to get redeployed. They thought they were getting redeployed in a cushy job in their hometowns. They'd wake up they'd wake
But
up.
it's a,
and
it's a, but
it's a sales
job,
and they couldn't.
and they were given,
wrap
you
the
have
grid.
to meet your numbers
Quota.
or
Yes.
you're in trouble.
Yes.
They were under such pressure. They had stories of people who were saying, "Send me back to the front. I don't want to be here."
Yeah, who needs this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
This is worse
And
stress
they
than
were
the other.
They were yes, they did say that. I want to go back to the front. It was the post-traumatic stress that presented out of working in these battalions, high sales, was debilitating. And that's when we got called in by military psychologists. Our commanding officers were neurologists and psychologists and heads of the command that brought us in, and they spent 4.5 hours with us. From 5 of them came, and we met them at the
Right out here in
battalions in
Encino.
the uniform battalion in Encino. We put them through the power play. They said it was the hardest thing. It was harder than boot camp. And
Love it.
they had never done anything that outrageous. I mean, the Army is very
Right,
buttoned
right.
down, very creative, let me say, very, very creative. And we got hired right then, right on the spot.
Unreal.
And they flew us out to Fort Jackson, and we did.
We spent a week.
We met everybody there.
Right.
They came back out here with a group
A
of
team.
trainers, psychologists.
Fabulous.
Battalion, command sergeant majors of battalions, and
Right. And we
So-
put them through an entire week of the power
I was
play.
going to say, do they now, take what you do and go and do it with?
Well, this
No,
was
but
an
that was our
interesting thing.
goal.
Yeah.
No, too much bureaucratic red tape. that's a whole other
That's
story.
a whole other
But
story
the
for
thing is-
another time.
The,
Yeah.
the people we
Yeah.
impacted, I'm sure that they took
Yes.
what
Okay.
they learned and brought it into whatever they were doing. Our goal, though, was to be able to go back
Right.
and in an ongoing way
Teach
teach
them.
and continue to
Correct.
teach.
Teach soldiers who could go back to their towns,
Well,
do the
right.
power
and
of
do
play.
the power
Yeah.
of play.
That was
which
our
is a
goal.
natural thing to do.
You were using logic.
Well, yeah.
Thank you.
Listen,
we didn't know you came aboard later.
The
Doug.
general, the general at this particular camp heard the name of our company, The Power of Play, and said, "What the f are you doing?"
Yeah,
This
we're not
was to his-
playing here.
Right, right.
Well, that's a
Exactly.
militaristic, some of the
Right.
very macho, what is it,
Yeah.
macho guys?
We
Yeah,
decided
what are you doing?
if we were ever going to do
Well, they
try
asked
this
us
again.
to change our name.
Well,
Yeah.
yes.
We,
Well,
they
forget
asked
it.
us.
No,
Well, we didn't.
no.
But they wanted names like, how about creative relief strategies? Is that like
Something-
it was
I
just-
don't think so.
Not
No.
quite as much fun.
So-
but
But
once
that was
again,
a beautiful thing. And I have to say, unfortunately, we don't have a visual of this, but listen to this. Okay, my name is an odd name, Rolla.
Right.
Okay, I'm sitting at my cousin's, who's a neurologist, and all of a sudden I go, neurologist. Oh my God, NEWRAHLAJEST, a neurologist. A neurologist. People that take the power of play and survive are neurologisters. I called Richard. I'm like jumping up
We
and
got
down.
it. We got
he
it.
goes,
I
all right,
get
it's
it.
good, but it's not that good. I said, no, it's good.
It's that good.
And I
Oh,
had
isn't that
Mug's
good?
Mane. It was great.
I
so.
have to tell our audience out there, you know, the only bad thing about our show,
Yes,
the only
is
bad
it
thing,
ends.
it
Yeah,
ends.
yeah.
Oh, my
I mean,
God.
really, it's like
crazy.
It's like, wait a minute, we're already out of time here. Okay, so we will have to come back again.
Oh, that's
I mean,
great. It's like a
because-
slumber party.
Well,
Yours-
it is.
really, it's what we
Well,
need.
to me, the two of you have not only made a life together 24/7 and helped everybody out there, but I think the people out there now that you have helped, I'm sure that they're taking that help and helping others. So now it's like a touch system. You know, I touch you, you touch,
Yes,
and
yes,
then the
yes.
world,
Yeah.
and eventually, hopefully, the world will have the power of play in our lives
Yeah.
to cure what's everybody
And I want
knows
to make
is
sure
wrong.
that when you come back, and we do invite you to do that, that you bring Chase, and
Please,
we
that would be
feature
nice.
Chase in
Okay.
a segment
Yes.
with his music because
That
he
would
is
be
a very
great.
talented
That's a-
young man.
He likes to
What
say
is
he's
it?
a byproduct
I
of a
love
groundling.
it.
He's like groundling adjacent.
Yes.
There's two groundlings
Everybody remember,
mated.
go on Amazon
Right.
and please get How
To beat
How to beat a
a
bully.
bully. and go on and you'll see tons of things from Rala. I mean, from the
If you-
power of
and
play.
when you look
All
up
kinds of stuff.
Rala, it's
The power of play.
RAHLA,
Right.
Rala Kahn, Kahn,
Thank you,
and
Doug.
Richard Rossner, Rossner, and you'll also find other information on how
Right.
to acquire books, how to just to follow them, because as you can see, lives well lived.
And if they want to reach you,
Yes.
how would they do that?
So we
ahead,
have
what's the
we
website?
have a website, thepowerofplayforhealth.com,
Good.
and it's spelled the Power of Play FOR Health, and you can find us there. We also have for corporate work just thepowerofplay.com.
Be sure and put the in there, or the Army told us you'd go someplace frisky. You have to have the power of play.
Okay, didn't really think about that. You're right.
They did,
Right.
yeah, they told us.
I love it. I want everybody to know this was a delightful, delightful day, and I thank you so very, very much. Chaplain Dove and I do this once a week with many people as our guests, but you really are delightful.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for
much.
having
and,
us.
and not only delightful, but you mean it.
Aw.
They
And
make a
thank
difference.
you so much. Thank
You know, you always hear that expression, how do you make a difference?
Right.
You guys make a difference,
you.
and as
Thank
long
you.
as I've known you, it's only gotten better and better.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
We
us.
will see you again very soon.
Take care.
God bless.
I'm gonna have my fling. I'm gonna live until I die. The blues I lay low, I'll make 'em stay low.